Guys, can you see the PowerPoint on your screen now?
Yes, sir.
All right. How many attendees, by the way? Okay, we have 21 attendees now. Okay, so in last class, we talked about uh, uh, some moral issues like ethical dilemma and work ethics. After this, let's talk about some rules for giving unsolicited criticism. In our daily life, we face criticism from others, and a lot of times we criticize others too. Uh, but there is a way of criticizing other. Sometimes we feel that some people are criticizing us just for the sake of criticism, right? जैसे हम उर्दू में तनकीद बराए तनकीद भी कहते हैं. So the criticism should not be for the sake of criticism, rather it should be for the sake of improvement. And here the word unsolicited means unasked for. Like sometimes people ask for our feedback on their any action or any product, but sometimes we do unasked for criticism. And there are certain rules that we should keep in our mind so that our criticism is taken positively and it really helps the other person to make improvement in his actions. So let's see what are the rules for giving unsolicited criticism. Or before I share the rules with you guys, let me ask you guys, what is your opinion on this? So what do you guys think? What strategy should we adopt in order to make productive criticism? Or what are the things that we should not do while criticizing others? So any idea about this? Ayan.
Sir,
Okay, Uzair, you want to say something? Please go ahead. Uzair.
sir, we should not go for humiliation, but our mood should be positive, and so that we can bring some improvement rather than bringing some negativity in the people.
Okay, so that's right, that our attitude should be positive. We should not be humiliating other means. We should not be rude. We should be polite. And only then we will be able to bring positive impact. Okay, that's a good idea. So let's see, what do I have on the slides? Okay, interestingly, the first rule for giving unsolicited criticism is don't give unsolicited criticism unless you are asked for. Give your feedback. Try to avoid criticizing others as far as possible, because most of the time this unasked for criticism offends people. So it's better not to give this kind of criticism. Secondly, if you decide that you have to give criticism, then the second rule that you need to keep in your mind is to check your motivation. Okay, no. I thought I got a message, but it was something else. So second rule is to check your motivation. Whenever you intend to criticize anybody, see that whether you actually want improvement in that person, or you have some other motivation, like are you like sometimes people criticize others just because of jealousy, right? Just because of that, just to humiliate others. So whenever you decide to criticize other, always check your intention or motivation, whether you are doing it with a positive intention or negative intention. So if your intentions are not positive, don't do the criticism, because that will harm instead of doing any benefit. Third is frame it as an opportunity. So whenever you are criticizing anybody, you should be careful about the choice of your words. The selection of words is important. You can frame your opinion in a negative way as well as in a positive way. So you should always choose your words carefully and frame your opinion in a positive way, means as an opportunity. Like if I give you an example, if let's say somebody is giving a public speech, and after that you are giving him or her feedback. Now let's say the presenter was poor in his eye contact. The eye contact wasn't good. So you can give this criticism as that, okay, your eye contact wasn't good and that felt people bored and disengaged. Now, this is one way of saying this, which is a negative way, or it's humiliating or insulting for the person in front of you. The other way of saying it that if you could somehow improve on your eye contact, I think your audience will be engaged in a better way. So this time you are basically giving the same opinion but in a positive way instead of uh, giving it in a way that the other person humiliated. Okay. Next is include yourself. Sometimes, uh, like when we criticize others, we give an impression that as if the problem that we are pointing out is very easy to fix, right? Uh, and basically, we should always uh, whenever we are giving this kind of criticism, we should try to include ourselves in the criticism. Like, okay, yeah, if you are giving criticism on this eye contact thing, then you can also share that whenever I speak to public, I also feel this challenge of having good eye contact with my audience, and so on. Then you start criticizing the presenter. So when you include yourself in the criticism, then the person in front of you does not feel humiliated. Okay. And the last thing is acknowledge the challenge, and that is also covered in the last point that I said, that you acknowledge that this thing is difficult, that you include yourself and you say that whenever I do this, I feel the same challenge, and it is actually really hard to do that. But I think with a little bit of practice, if you improve on this, then your overall performance will be greatly improved. So these are the 5 basic rules that we should follow whenever we give unsolicited criticism. And the last thing about this unsolicited criticism is feedback sandwich. That's a popular term among the people who were the experts of social behaviors. That whenever you want to criticize anybody, use this feedback sandwich. Feedback sandwich means, first of all, give some positive feedback, praise or appreciate or acknowledge anything which is positive about that work. And then you give your negative opinion, negative feedback, and at the end, you once again give some more positive feedback. And that kind of makes the situation or the conclusion, like makes a happy ending, right? You praise at the beginning, then you give your negative feedback, and at the end, you again give your positive feedback about something, some other quality or property of the activity or the product that you are criticizing. So if you use this feedback sandwich approach, then again there is a good chance that your feedback will be taken positively. Okay, so with this we have actually concluded this criticism thing. Okay, anybody wants to say something? Somebody's mic is turned on. Check who is this. Okay, it's turned off now. All right, so next we have some ways of dealing with the moral disagreement. In the previous lecture, we talked, and in the previous lecture, we talked about the moral issues, and in last class, we talked about the ethical dilemma. So, in whatever society we live, we have moral disagreements with the people around us. Some things we might assume as moral, but the people who are working with us, they might not think those things are as morals, right? So the moral disagreement, it's there almost in every case. So what are the different ways to handle moral disagreement? First option that is a common one, especially in our society, is to go for confrontation. That whenever you have a moral disagreement with somebody, you confront him or her. and you try to prove that your point is correct and the other person is wrong. The problem with confrontation is that it offends people, and as a result, the chances of real improvement or the chances of change in other person's behavior are very low. Because when you confront somebody, then people take it personally, and then it becomes a matter of their ego not to accept your opinion. Even if they, in their heart, they think that you are right, then they will not accept it because now it's a question of their self-esteem or ego. That's the problem with confrontation. The other way of dealing with moral disagreement is tolerance. It's live and let live approach. That you accept that we live in a diverse society where there are people with different religious beliefs, with different cultural norms, people speak different languages, they dress differently, uh, they have different eating habits. So we accept all this diversity, and we live our lives and we let other people live their lives. This approach of tolerance has certain advantages uh, over the confrontation, because in case of confrontation, uh, the confrontation will lead the society to disintegration. However, if we have tolerance, then we will have more harmony in the society, and there will be more, you may say, the lives of people would be more comfortable. However, the experts of social behaviors, they think, like some people think that the tolerance is the best approach, but there is another idea as well, and some experts give a third way of dealing with this moral disagreement approach as well. And that approach is the approach of engagement in healthy discussion. Um, the people who think that this approach is the best one, their opinion is that whenever we we are too much tolerant and we just tolerate everything and we accept all this diversity and we do not engage in any discussion at all, then we lose the chances of moral growth. There's a term that the people who are experts in social behavior, they use this term of moral growth. Means that let's say I have certain beliefs at this point in time, or I think that certain things are moral and certain other things are immoral. Uh, if I do not have any discussion with anybody else with an open mind, I will never be able to improve on my beliefs, because uh, now some of you might have experienced this thing that there are some things that you think uh, as moral today, but maybe a few years back you were not okay with those things, and vice versa is also true. In our life, as we grow, as our exposure increases, as we move around the world and we see different things, our moral values and our beliefs change. And this happens when we observe and when we engage in healthy discussion with other people. So if we do not engage in healthy discussion with an open mind, then we will never grow morally. So the people who think that this is the best approach, uh, they are of they value this moral growth. Okay, and for this, the most important thing is that we have discussion with an open mind, with an assumption in our background that we might be wrong and the other person might be right, so that we do not focus on just proving our points correct all the time. Okay, so these were some of the ways or some of the points to deal with the moral disagreement. Anybody having any question about this? Because now we are going to move to the next topic. Let me come to the teams. All right, we have 33 attendees at this point. Anybody uh, wants to comment on this about the moral disagreement, the ways to deal with moral disagreement? Do you think these ways are correct, or which one is the best approach? Would anybody like to comment on that? Moin, Moin Avas. Moin, are you
Yes,
there?
sir.
Okay, Moin,
Yes,
आपका क्या
sir.
ख्याल है? We have talked about three different ways of dealing with the moral disagreement. What do you think? Which one is the better or the best one?
I think so. So the third one is better engagement in healthy discussion in order to get others' viewpoint, and having a great discussion will help us broaden our mindset.
Okay, so you basically agree with the points that are being told to you. And one more thing, that in this course, um we just don't want to study these things, but I actually really want you guys to practice these things in your daily life. Like now, whenever you come across with anybody who has moral disagreement with you, so I would suggest you guys to practice these things, and that's the basic objective. This subject uh, is definitely an applied subject. As we are not here, like we are not the students of social behaviors or social sciences. We are taking this subject as an applied subject. So the basic or the main intent of this subject is to learn the things and then practice those things in our daily lives. Okay, so I would strongly recommend you guys, and that's the basic objective, that whatever we are discussing here, you try to practice these things in your lives. And I hope these things will definitely help you guys to grow. Okay, so now let's move to our next topic. When we started our discussion about this course, we discussed that we will be talking about different codes of ethics. Different national and international organizations have developed their codes of ethics, and engineers are supposed to follow these codes of ethics in their professional lives. Okay, let's see what codes we will be discussing. So we will be mainly talking about two codes. The Code of Ethics by American Society of Civil Engineers, ASCE, and the Code of Ethics by Pakistan Engineering Council. Uh, the copies of both these codes have already been uploaded on the link that I have already shared with you guys. Have you guys checked that link? Is it working?
Yes, sir. It
Yes,
is.
sir.
Okay, that's great. So I will be uploading all the information related to this subject on the same folder so that I don't have to share the link with you guys all the time. So one link is with you, and in the same folder, I'll keep on making subfolder, and I'll keep on adding files. These files, all the presentations that we have discussed till today, and that the one that we are discussing right now, all these presentations are already there. The codes of ethics are also there. American Society of Civil Engineers, like they have revised their code of ethics probably last year. So the older version of that code of ethics and the latest version of that code of ethics, both are there in the folder. Similarly, the code of ethics provided by Pakistan Engineering Council, that code of ethics is also uploaded. Pakistan Engineering Council uh, has actually two documents which are relevant to us. One is Code of Ethics and other is Code of Conduct. The Code of Ethics is mainly derived from the Holy Quran, and I have uploaded that document. When you will see that, you'll find that basically they have gathered a bunch of verses from different places in the Holy Quran, and they have just compiled that in one document, and they have called that document as Code of Ethics. And then there is another document that's a Code of Conduct. That is probably uh, the one that we were looking for. Like it has certain points, practical points that okay, you need to do this, you need to do this, or you are not supposed to do this or do that. So I want you guys to go through both those documents, the Code of Ethics as well as the Code of Conduct. Okay. Uh, and these codes, actually both these codes have several like a lot of overlappings, because like truthfulness or honesty or integrity or being helpful, being loyal, all these things, like these are the common traits. The ASC has recommended these things as well as PEC has recommended these things. So what I have decided is that we will not be going through both these codes. We will just talk about ASCE code. I chose this because this is a relatively shorter one, and if we discuss this one code in detail in class, then you will surely be able to get an idea about PEC's code as well. And as the code is already with you, so you guys can go through that, and all that code is pretty much self-explanatory. So I hope you guys won't find any difficulty. Okay, so now let's jump to the code of ethics provided by ASCE and see what are the different important clauses in that. When you will see this document, you will find that at the beginning they have given a preamble, and in that preamble they have included certain fundamental principles that we as engineers are supposed to follow. So let's see what are those fundamental principles. The first principle is create safe, resilient, and sustainable infrastructure. This is our responsibility. Like this is our first and foremost responsibility, and this is something that we can never compromise upon. Our structures must be safe, because if a civil engineer designs an unsafe structures and that structure collapse, then that will lead to great loss of human lives and property, right? Maybe a doctor's mistake might cost one life or two lives, but when a civil engineer makes a mistake, it may cost dozens of lives, tens or dozens of lives, or even hundreds of lives in some cases. Let's say a bridge collapses, or a multi-story building collapses, or in worst case scenario, like even bigger, in a bigger perspective, let's say a dam collapses, then it might lead to like hundreds of casualties, right? And let's say we make structures which are not properly designed against earthquake, then in case of earthquake, several structures collapse, then it will cost too many lives. And so the structures that we design must be safe and resilient and sustainable. What do you mean by resilience? In simple words, you might say that this is durability. Resilience is durability. So the structure, or in more specific terms, in civil engineering, when we perform tension test on steel bars, we calculate modulus of resilience. And what is that modulus of resilience? It is that the ability of the material or that structure to regain its original shape when the applied loading is removed. Okay, so it means that that is for a steel bar. But if we talk about a whole structure, let's say a multi-story building or a bridge structure, it means that when we apply load on those structures should be able to withstand those loads. And once the loads are removed, if some deformations were there, they should come back to their original state. That is what resilience is. And sustainable infrastructure. Now, what is sustainability? By sustainability, we mean that whenever we are making progress and we are making new structures or we are developing new technology, our newly built structures should not harm the existing structures and environment. If any project is harming the existing structures or existing environment, we won't call that structure as a sustainable structure. A sustainable structure is the one that does not negatively affect its surroundings, whether it's the built environment or uh, it is the natural environment. There are several different ways in which we can make our structures sustainable. We will talk about that in a short while when we'll be going through some of the detailed points. The second responsibility is to treat all persons with respect, dignity, and fairness. So in whatever organization we are working, whether we are an employee or we are running our own business, and we are the business owner, we have other subordinates. So whatever capacity you are working in, contractor, consultant, or client, it is the responsibility of a civil engineer to treat other people with respect, dignity, and fairness. The people who are working with us should should uh, get that feeling that they are being treated with respect and fairness. And this should be done without disregard of personality identity, that we should not do any pick and choose. Okay, we treat these people with respect, and but some other people with like a kind of casual behavior. No, that should not be the case. Next fundamental principle is that consider the current and anticipated needs of the society. This is the responsibility of an engineer towards a society, that engineers uh, they gauge the current and anticipated or the future needs of the society, and then they propose projects accordingly. There are several examples of it. For example, uh, this orange line metro train, or some rapid like the mass transit system, bus mass transit system. How these projects are proposed? These projects are proposed based upon the need of the society. We engineers see that how the population is growing and how much is the volume of traffic at certain roads or certain intersections or within certain cities, and how we can fulfill the needs of the society, whether we need to build a flyover or an underpass, or we need to build both at any intersection. Do we need to make an intersection signal free by making some alternate arrangement? Do we need to provide what do we call this, roundabout at any intersection? So these are some examples with respect to transportation system. And these are not the only examples. We have other responsibilities too. For example, if in any area do we need any water filtration plant or water treatment plant for drinking water, do we need a wastewater treatment plant, right? Depending upon the need of the society. So all these societal needs are studied by the engineers, and then they propose solutions. So this is another responsibility of engineers. And last one is a most general one, that civil engineers are supposed to utilize their knowledge and skills to enhance the quality of life for humanity. Like this is a general one. It basically encompasses the ones that we have already discussed, uh, that we take care of the need of the society in different terms, in terms of transportation, in terms of like drinking water or wastewater, or in terms of uh, and even the transportation has several different aspects, like the air travel or transportation through roads. Everything, all these societal needs must be satisfied. So we should use our knowledge to improve the overall quality of human life. This is the fourth general or fundamental principle. Next, after these fundamental principles, ASCE recognizes five stakeholders. When we as an engineer practice our profession, there are five different stakeholders which are, we may say, affected by our practice, and ASCE has recognized those stakeholders in the order of their priority. The first stakeholder is society. How society is a stakeholder? Because almost all the projects that we make, those are used by the society. The roads that we build, the bridges that we build, the airports, the water treatment plant, the high-rise buildings, the dams. So all these projects are related to the society. Society is the beneficiary, right? So it's the most important stakeholder as far as the civil engineering profession is concerned. Second is natural and built environment. The structures that we make are in the like we make in the environment. If uh, if we are planning a highway joining two big cities, those highways will pass through villages or towns or other big cities, uh, might pass through fields. So all the structures, even the small structures, relatively small structures, as compared to the large distance highways, even if it's a small bridge within a community, so it will be present in the natural system, in the environment, and in the built environment. So we need to take care of that. That how our structures, that our activities and our structures affect the natural and the built environment. Uh, and another example of a huge structure is a dam. Let's say dam is a huge structure. We obstruct the path of water, and then it creates a huge reservoir. Even the structure or the structure of that obstruction is really huge, but the water body that is generated as a result of that obstruction, that is also like tremendously large, and it engulfs maybe large part of the of some area. So whenever we construct or execute such projects, we need to make sure that the natural or built environment is not affected. We'll be talking about all these stakeholders in detail. The ASCE Code of Ethics provides us several guidelines about these. Next is profession. We are member of the civil engineering community, and we are practicing this profession. So as a professional civil engineer, this is our responsibility that our activities or our actions do not bring negative fame to our profession. Rather, we should practice this profession in such a way that it brings noble name to our profession. Okay, and how we can do that, we'll talk about that. Next is clients and employers. Whenever we are working either as an employee or as a business owner, we work for either clients or we work for our employers. And there are several different ways, or there are 1,000 ways in which the clients and employers, they get affected by our actions and our activities. So what are the points that we should need to keep that we are supposed to keep in our mind? We'll talk about those points. Peers. Who are the peers? The people who we work with, like the people who are like they are of the same level as of us. Those people are termed as our peers. For example, in your class, your classmates are your peers. When you will be working as a professional engineer in an organization, so your colleagues will be your peers. Okay, so as an engineer, we have certain responsibilities to our peers as well, and we will ASCE has given us certain guidelines about dealing with our peers. So we'll talk about all these our responsibilities to all these stakeholders in detail. Now let's move to our first stakeholder, and that is society. That what are our our responsibilities towards the societies. First and foremost responsibility is health, safety, and welfare of the public. So again, it comes from the very first fundamental principle that whatever structure we design, we are supposed to design them in a safe way. And the public safety must always be ensured. If we are designing a bridge or a high-rise building or a dam or a water treatment plant or a wastewater treatment plant, all these structures should be designed according to the standard, and the public safety must be ensured. Okay. Enhance the quality of life for humanity. So whatever project we make, those projects should contribute to enhancing or improving in the quality of life. And when we say the quality of life, it has like multiple meaning. One is the safety is one thing, as we talked in point number one, that the structure we design should be safe, like the bridges should be safe or high-rise buildings should be safe. But there are like other aspects to it as well. For example, as an environmental engineer, if you have designed the structure of a water treatment plant, that structure should not fail, it should not collapse, the building should remain intact. But there is another side to it, like what the environmental engineers do. They also need to make sure the quality of water, and environmental engineering is also a branch of civil engineering. So that comes in under the civil engineering basically. So ensuring the quality of water, for example, if you install a tube well in any locality, now you need to ensure that you should pump the groundwater from appropriate depth, and because especially in the in cities or in the areas vicinity of some wastewater disposal station or some industry that is polluting the environment, if you extract groundwater for human use from in the vicinity of such areas, that groundwater may not have appropriate quality. So you need to make sure that the water extraction facility should be at certain distance from such wastewater disposal stations, and the water depth should be the depth from which we are extracting the water should be appropriate, and we should check the quality of the water, that it should be okay for the human use, for human drinking and other uses. So it's not just related, like the safety is not just about the safety of the structure, but we should also ensure that the projects that we are making, they are good for the public health as well. All right. Express professional opinion truthfully and only when founded on adequate knowledge and honest conviction. This also points out to one of the common practices in our society, that a lot of people give opinions uh, about the things that they are not expert on. And this thing is common in civil engineering profession, that you would see architects doing structural design, or even like diploma holders doing structural designs. The contractors, they just copy and paste structural design. So there are a lot of people who give their opinions about the things that they are not expert on, and that is something discouraged. That is not desirable, because in some of the cases, people might make such mistakes that might lead to catastrophic failures. So if you are not an expert on certain thing, you should not give your opinion on that. And whenever you give an opinion, it should be founded on solid background of knowledge. Okay, if you are, let's say, designing a building, you should follow ACI code or other relevant standards. Okay, zero tolerance for bribery and fraud. That's obvious. As an engineer, we should work with honesty and dignity, and zero tolerance to bribe, and endeavor to be service in civic affairs. So we should have a mindset of serving the society. If we work with this mindset, then we will be able to give our best contribution to the society. It's not just about like our mindset should not be just about making money. The mindset should be of service. Next, treat all people with respect, dignity, and fairness, and reject all forms of discrimination and harassment. We have already talked about respect and dignity, and the discrimination, as we talked earlier, that we live in a diverse society, and in fact, every society is diverse, whether we are talking about our society or some other societies abroad. Every society have diversity. We should respect the diversity, and we should not discriminate amongst people. Let's say you are working in a project and there are several different people involved. So if you are talking about a technical issue, all your focus should be on that technical issue, and people's opinion should be evaluated on the basis of their argument or logic or the rationale, instead of any other like parameter related to their religious beliefs or gender or the language that they speak or the race they belong to. All these things are like irrelevant whenever you are practicing a profession. So no discrimination or no harassment should be there. So when different people are working together, everybody should make sure that other people, the teammates or the colleagues, they should feel comfortable with their presence. Nobody should feel uncomfortable. That is important to develop strong work ethic in the organization. Next thing is acknowledge the diverse historical, social, and cultural needs of the community and incorporate these considerations in their work. Like every society or every community has, like for example, there are some salient features of their architecture. Let's say, for example, Islamic architecture has certain features like calligraphy, or like when we talk about mosques, then we make use of minarets and domes. That's related to the Islamic architecture. So whenever you are related or you are working on a project that is relevant to a certain community, then you make use of all of your knowledge to conform to their requirements. Like not only the massages or the mosques have their special architecture or requirement. Even other like churches have their own special architecture. The other temples of other religious communities, they have their own special architecture. So if you are working on any such specialized project, then you need to make sure uh, that you take care of the special needs of that project. Okay, then what next? Consider the capability, limitations, implications of current and emerging technologies when part of their project. So, whenever you are involved in any project, you should try to make your project in line with the most recent advancement uh, related to that project. For example, if you are making a bridge or you are making some really high-rise building like a skyscraper, so whatever modern construction techniques are required, you should follow those. You should try to incorporate those in your practice. And even after the construction, if it's a critical structure and you think that you need to monitor that structure, then uh, you should use the state-of-the-art structural health monitoring techniques to for the monitoring of these structures. So this was just a couple of examples. Whatever you are doing, whatever project you are involved in, you need to make sure that you should uh, make a state of the art project. Okay, and modern technology should be as far as possible. Obviously there are other limitations on the budget or on the availability of the resources, but keeping in view all those limitations, you should try to incorporate all the modern technologies that you can. If there is any misconduct or inappropriate behavior uh, on the behalf of anybody, such misconduct should be reported to the authorities. Okay, so these were some of the responsibilities related to the society. Anybody having any question about this? Any question or comments? Do you think we missed anything? Is there any other uh, responsibility, like engineers' responsibilities to the society? Or would you like to comment on anything?
Sir, my question is, do you think that these codes are applied in professional field or organization follow these codes?
Um, okay, I got your point that you like maybe your understanding is that these things are a bit too idealistic and might not be followed. The thing is that this thing varies from society to society. Um, I have experienced, I have an experience of living in the United States, and I think in those societies they follow these ethical norms uh, in a better way. Like honestly speaking, in a better way than us. In our society, yeah, a lot of people make compromises on the ethical values, and so much so that even earlier we were not even taught these ethical values, but this is also an improvement that now we are at least discussing these things, that these are the moral values or ethical values that we are supposed to follow. So in a lot of cases, you're right, there are a lot of people who do not follow the ethical values, and this is unfortunate. But now our education system is realizing these things, that we need to educate our engineers, and that is why earlier these things like these written rules were there. The Code of Ethics of Pakistan Engineering Council was there on their website. I don't know, like since ages, but as the engineering community felt this need that uh, our engineers need to be educated about these things. That is why this course has been introduced in our curriculum now, and we are talking about these things. So now there is a better chance that as we are talking about these things, so I think this will definitely make some improvement in our professional lives, and we can expect that the students or the people who have at least discussed these things I hope this discussion will at least have an impression on their mind, and whenever they will be making any decision, they will probably be making ethical decisions, most probably. Okay. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And another thing is that ultimately it comes to your personal moral values. Currently, there are a lot of people who do their work with dignity, honesty, and fairness. Uh, but the main source is their own ethical values or the moral values, the personal moral values. Um but in general, unfortunately, in our society, our ethical values are not that well developed. But we are on our way, hopefully, if we keep on talking about these things. Uh, like already there are a lot of good people, but there are other cases as well. So if we keep on talking about these things and we keep on motivating each other, hopefully it will contribute um, in the improvement of our society. All right. So, is there any other question? Okay, guys. So, if there is no more question, then we can conclude our meeting here. Um, Today, I took your attendance at the beginning because a lot of you guys were late, and that's not the good thing. So, your attendance is already marked. And now I will conclude this meeting and be on time in all the classes. Okay. I'm going to conclude this meeting now and see you guys in next class, inshallah.